Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
Welcome into another episode of Dynasty Nerds. Obviously, I am not Rich Dotson. Normally, you hear a different voice opening up the show. Unfortunately, Rich did have a death in his family this past week, so he will not be joining us tonight. But we do still have the super good-looking Matt O'Hara. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Garret. How are you? And, best to Rich and his family, obviously. Just want to set that up right at the beginning.
Yeah. We tried this past week to give him his privacy. We didn't want to get into too many of the details and things like that. But I know that hearing from him, he's been very appreciative of everyone that's reached out and, offered him prayers and well wishes and all those kinds of things. So we will definitely miss him, but we will do our best to fill in. We missed you guys last week as well, not getting to talk to you guys, put out the show. We saw your tweets of those that missed the show. Some were kind of angry that might not have known what happened, but that is where we were. But we are back this week. And before we get into what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to kind of go back through some of these rookies. And now that Matt and I have both had quite a few drafts, we pretty much have our order set of where we would take guys, who's ahead of who. Before we get into that, though, let's talk about our friends over at DynastyDepot.com. Dynasty Depot. Matt, tell us what you've gained so far from our friends over at Dynasty Depot.
I mean, obviously, it's a great little site. It's almost like an eBay for Dynasty sites where you can buy and sell trades. It's the FFPC leagues. So they're high stake leagues and they've never had one fold, which is great. I mean,
that's crazy.
And it all boils down to the fact that, hey, if you want to get out of it, you sell it. You know what I mean? So there's no reason for anything to fold. So these things will just keep going and keep going. And if you're into buying something, kind of upgrading it and flipping it, say a house or something like that, this is exactly what you'd like for Dynasty as well, because you can get in, you can maybe make some improvements to a team, you flip it for a profit and you can get out. Or you can do a lot of things. I mean, you could buy a team that's cheap and start adding that has maybe a lot of youth or a lot of draft capital, and maybe just stay in and win the prizes. Like eventually, eventually just work it up and that's your thing, like rebuilding. Maybe you like doing that. So the Dynasty Depot, they have something for everybody. And there's a lot to offer. And obviously, $14.99 with the code NERDS. It gets you a little discount and gets your foot in the door there for a little bit cheaper. So Dynasty Depot, they're our friends.
No, I'm with you. We had somebody on Twitter literally like 2 weeks ago that was like, man, I wish there was a place. I kid you not. This is a true story. I wish there was a place where I could just draft teams and sell them to other people because I'm so good at drafting, but I just don't want to deal with managing all of these teams. Yeah. And I was like, actually, that's exactly what this is.
Yeah. So that's great, man. Dynasty Depot, whoever that is, go hit them up quick.
I did. I'd let them know. I let them know about the promo code NERDS, only $14.99 FFPC. Get in it while you can. So Matt, let's go over to our rankings now.
Yep.
And you and I had some debate over our rankings pre-draft. I'm sure we'll still have a little bit of debate post-draft. But the one thing that we saw eye to eye very clearly was that Javonte Williams was the number one overall prospect in one QB leagues for us. And obviously that also makes him the number one overall running back. I'm assuming that is still the case for you now, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It still is. Nothing has changed as far. I mean, the draft capital was still there. I mean, he was a high second round draft pick, and he goes to a situation in Denver where, obviously the quarterback situation is unsettled and there's some competition there, but the competition, it's Melvin Gordon and he's getting up there in age and this is his last year under contract. So I think for this year, Javonte Williams is going to be splitting carries as long as Melvin Gordon's healthy. It's going to be those two. It's going to be kind of a two-headed monster type of thing. But obviously the future is just next year, and it's going to be his job to kind of run with, in my opinion.
One of the things I didn't hear people talk about a ton too is Melvin Gordon did get a DUI this past offseason. Now that was, I believe he was like acquitted, but we know how the NFL is, and sometimes they will offer up their own punishments.
Sure.
Regardless of what the law chose to do or not do. We saw that with Ezekiel Elliott a few years back where he had the big suspension, although he was never actually charged with anything. And so we don't even know how that's going to play out. So this could easily be a situation too, where all of a sudden Melvin Gordon has a 2-game suspension to start the year and Javonte Williams gets to kind of show what he can do. But even worst case scenario, we could see this being very similar to what happened with Cam Akers last year, Jonathan Taylor last year, some of those other players where it was kind of a timeshare, a little bit of J.K. Dobbins as well, where it was a little bit of a timeshare to start the year. But as the year went on, the clearly better player, the younger, better athlete got more time as the year went on. And I think that's probably what the case is going to be for Javonte. So even in redraft leagues, obviously this is Dynasty that we focus on, but even in redraft leagues, I'm still interested because I think come playoff time, I think it's not a 50-50 share. I think we're looking at more like he's the bell cow and then Gordon comes in to relieve him here and there.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. And a thing that we haven't mentioned in years, and we haven't heard anything about it in years, are Melvin Gordon's knees. I mean, this is a guy that had microfracture knee surgery back in the day. So, yeah. I mean, we haven't heard anything about it, but I mean, that might have been an underlying issue as well as why they went out and drafted a guy that high in the second round.
Even Phillip Lindsay was cutting into his touches last year. It's not like he was the man last year. And I would take Javonte over, obviously, Melvin Gordon, but easily over Phillip Lindsay as well.
Yeah, and Phillip Lindsay is out the door now also. So it's a very clear path eventually for him to get carries or the whole entire, lion's share of the carries. But I think, to beginning the year, like to your point, I think it's going to be a little of a split thing to begin the year.
Yep. All right. So we move to 2. I have, and we're going to go off my list, and I'm going to kind of ask you if you agree or you think I'm an idiot, or okay. Maybe not an idiot, but it's a little off from your rankings.
I'm not usually that harsh on you.
You're not.
I'll let
That's
you down
true.
Pretty easy. Yeah, I can disagree with people without being that forceful.
Well, Rich isn't here. I didn't know. Maybe you'd go into like Podfather mode or something. Who knows?
I don't have that in me. No, I'm good.
You don't have it in you. Okay.
No.
So I have Najee Harris at 2 overall. It's tough because I do like the receivers in this class, but running back just drops off really quick. And I think Najee is close enough to Javonte where I feel comfortable taking him 2nd overall. Same for you, different for you?
No, it's the same for me. Najee he was my 2nd running back by the time the draft rolled around. I do like the landing spot in Pittsburgh, but obviously they have some retooling on that offensive line. When you think of Pittsburgh, you think, oh, they have this awesome offensive line, but that was like 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago when they really did have a good offensive line. Now it's a bit of a mess, and they're going to have to be retooling that kind of on the fly here. Obviously they just lost Villanueva. I can't say his name.
Villanueva.
Yes, thank you. To Baltimore, not too long ago as well. So that's another guy that went out the door from that offensive line group. But Najee, he's I think a very safe prospect, and I think he fits well. He does, obviously he's going to be catching passes out of the backfield. And he's already made comments about how there's a likeness between the Alabama offense and the offense with the Steelers as far as inside zone, outside zone, that kind of stuff. So, I like the fit there with Najee. I am slightly worried about the offensive line in front of him, but we'll see how they get that figured out.
Yeah, last year by Football Outsiders rated as the worst running offensive line. So that's definitely a concern. But they were actually a pretty solid passing offensive line. So you do kind of wonder if they'll lean on that more so than they will the run because of that. They do have all of their receivers coming back, and it's a pretty crowded wide receiver room. We got Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and even James Washington is still there. Mm-hmm. Questions about Big Ben's arm, though. Is he still going to want to sling it downfield? We didn't see that quite as much last year. So could be seeing some of the checkdowns to Najee. That'll give him a little bit of a boost. I am worried about his overall production as far as his efficiency goes. I do worry a little bit about that, but I just think the touches are going to be so high. I mean, we're talking about Anthony McFarland, and we're talking about Kalen Ballage and Benny Snell. Like, those are the guys behind him. I don't see any, like, even the combination of those guys, I would be shocked to see them get 25% of the touches, even all three of them combined. So I think he's one of the safest running backs, not even just of the rookies, but of all the running backs to have a pretty high touch load. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And the Steelers, to use a first round draft pick when they have big time needs on the offensive line and some other spots is telling. I think they want to make some sort of commitment to the run. And there isn't another guy on their roster right now with the same kind of burst and juice and just athleticism and just instincts that Najee Harris runs with. So he's easily going to be the bell cow back for them. I think that's what they've been looking for years. James Conner, I think, gave it to him for a year, but then he faded.
All the injuries.
All the injuries and all the stuff he had to overcome. I just think he just didn't have enough juice to kind of sustain that. Mm-hmm. So that's why they went out and drafted Najee Harris with the 24th pick in the first round to really solidify that position and kind of get a pounder and get a guy that they just leave in the game and let him go. There's no situation where you need to take him off the field. So it's a nice pick. And that's why he's number 2 right now on my list.
So number 3, basically 3 through 6 for me is all really, really, really close. Like you could put them all in a jar and shake them up and just roll them out like dice, and whatever came up, I would probably be fine with. At the moment, I have Devonta Smith at number 3. Who's your number 3 guy?
So right now I have got Kyle Pitts there and Damante Smith one spot below at number 4. But like you said, I'll extend that even to 7 for me. And roll them up and throw them. Like I have no problem right now. If Javonte Williams went first, Najee Harris went second, you have a need at running back, go get Travis Etienne. I feel fine about that. You know what I mean? They are that close to me. But right now he's at my 7th. He's at my 7th spot. So,
so I'm curious to see who's above him. We'll have to get to that in a second.
Yeah. So go ahead. I have Kyle Pitts at 3. Devonta Smith, though, to me is a great pick at number 3 as well. So, those kind of Kyle Pitts and Devonta Smith were boom. You know what I mean? Like right up against each other.
Go ahead and go through 7 then, because I'm curious as to who you have in there.
So I have Kyle Pitts at 3, Devonta Smith at 4, and then Jamar Chase at 5. Oh, I guess it's not as 2, 4. It is 6. My bad. Okay. Because I was curious. I was like, did you put Waddle in there? Did you put Elijah Moore in there? And then Travis Etienne. So that's my bad. I was just doing a bad job of counting.
The accountant over here. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we're kind of in agreement there. So for me, it goes Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts. And then I actually also have Travis Etienne at 6, which kind of surprised me. Before we get to Travis Etienne, let's talk about Smith. He did get the less draft capital. I mean, it's still top 10. So it's great draft capital, but he did get drafted behind Jamar Chase and behind Jalen Waddle. Goes to a situation with Jalen Hurts where we don't feel super confident in him as a passing quarterback yet. Not saying that he can't improve and get there, but it's not like he's going to, the Chiefs. It's not like he's going to the Chargers. It's a place where we have a little bit of a question mark. Is he such a good prospect that obviously you still have him above Jamar Chase? What gives you confidence to still have him over Jamar Chase? And then we'll kind of get into how Pitts fits in this in just a second.
Sure. So Devonta Smith, I have just such admiration and love for the way he plays the game. I had to keep him up. He was ahead of Jamar Chase pre-draft.
Yep.
I think the situation there in Philadelphia, honestly, is going to change. Either Hurts is going to drastically get better at passing the ball, or he's not going to be there. There's already reports coming out that they're not putting in a lot of RPO stuff early on, and to me, that speaks to, and there's going to be a true competition at quarterback and stuff like that. That speaks to the fact that
Joe Flacco.
I mean, obviously Flacco's not going to win that thing, but they're not going.
Right. I know what you're saying though.
It's an odd stubbornness and it's an odd stance to take at this point in the offseason. To me, something doesn't add up there.
Right. It is a new coach though.
And it is a new coach. I'm not a huge Jalen Hurts guy. I don't think he's a good enough passer of the football to be a starting caliber NFL quarterback long term. I think he can be a gimmicky guy that gets it done for a year or two. But if the Eagles want to have long-term success, I think they need to go in a different direction. And that's why I have Devonta Smith there where I have him, because this is Dynasty. 2 or 3 years from now, I think it's gonna be a different quarterback throwing him the football, and that's why I kept him there. I'm gonna stick with the talent on this one, and not that Ja'Marr Chase isn't talented, because he is very talented as well, and he's in a much better situation, much better offense. But Devonta Smith, to me, is just a more talented player.
Yeah, I'm with you. I still have him above Ja'Marr Chase, and for many of the same reasons. I liked his tape better than I like Ja'Marr Chase's tape. The weight does not scare me. People still are bringing it up. I don't know why it's still a topic of conversation. I feel like it's been talked about ad nauseum, but
there are some funny pictures out there though.
There are. Did you see the one where his arms were like this big? Yeah,
there's some funny pictures.
I appreciate some good humor on that.
Exactly. I can take that. That's funny.
Yeah. But overall, when I look at what he was able to do on the field, wins the Heisman Trophy. I mean, fantastic route runner, burst, so physical for such a small guy.
Absolutely.
There was obviously times where there was a little bit of a limitation on it, but no more than there would be for a normal receiver. Like, he still played very physical for his size. Jump ball, getting off the line, none of that was an issue.
Fearless, too. I mean, he plays fearless.
He does.
For a guy that's that small, you could start seeing ghosts, so to speak, out in the secondary, alligator arming some stuff. I mean, some stuff I saw Judy do last year.
Yeah, his teammate.
Yeah. So he doesn't have any of that in his game. And that's why I love Devonta Smith and have him, fourth overall, but my top rated wide receiver.
So we mentioned Chase real quick, and if you want to talk more about him, we can, but fantastic player as well. What had you, because I have Pitts at 5. So I have him slightly behind Devonta and Ja'Marr Chase. What catapulted you to want to have Pitts over those two? And I'll get into why I still have him a little bit lower.
Sure. I mean, I think it's some of the same reasoning why the running backs get pushed up every year. You know what I mean? There are only so many people that can perform at the certain positions at a very, very high level. And I think Kyle Pitts is one of these guys that can. So that makes him a difference maker. And in my eyes, I love Devonta Smith. I love Ja'Marr Chase. I love Jalen Waddle. Next year, there's going to be 3 more guys that I love. You know what I mean? Sure. There might not be another guy like Kyle Pitts who runs a 4.4, 6'4", 200 or 6'6", 246 pounds. A great jump ball type of guy. You can just toss it up to him. I mean, he's a very unique prospect at the tight end position and offers just a ton of upside. Will he get there? I have no idea. I mean, history would probably tell you no. He's probably not. But I'm willing to take that gamble on a guy like Kyle Pitts based off of what I see on tape. And that's what it boils down to. Use your eyes. I love what I see with my eyes with this guy. It's not only the measurables and the freak athletic stuff that he does. It's the mismatches that he presents on the field that I really like. And I think as long as, obviously Atlanta is a offense that they like to use a tight end quite a bit. So I like the fit. I like the player. I think he's going to be a difference maker in 2 or 3 years at the position. And there are just so few difference makers at the tight end position that I had to catapult him above some guys that I think are really good players. But at the wide receiver position, there's 2 or 3 guys every single year that are good players.
Yeah. I mentioned it before. I have zero issue at all putting him at 3. And honestly, there's a part of me that wants to put him that high as well. So I'm right there with you. The reason I haven't yet is I'm a little gun shy because the hype on Kyle Pitts has been so high, and it's warranted. I mean, watching his tape, it was a thing of beauty to watch him play. And even in some of the clips that I've seen from, the rookie mini camps and stuff like that, like he runs routes like a receiver, like the way he is able to sink his hips and get down. Like it's really, really impressive overall. The problem is the hype has just gotten so high with Pitts that he's going to have to be a tight end, top 4 or 5 tight end, almost from day one. Maybe not quite day one, but by year 2, he's going to have to be one of those big 3, 4, however many there are in a given year. Right now, kind of have 3.
Right.
But that upper, that tier 1, he's going to have to be one of those tier 1 guys right away. Or this pick just doesn't really pay off, because then if he's not one of those guys, then he's Dallas Goedert, then he's Hunter Henry, then he's in this range where there's just not much of a difference. So if you feel confident and sure that he can be that guy, then I have no problem putting him there. I'm just not sold that it's only on him either. It seems to be a lot of the product of the offense. That's part of the reason Zach Ertz was so successful for so long. It's not because he was this freak athlete. It's not because he was, just breaking guys off with his, incredible routes and jumping over guys and mossing them. He just landed in a really good opportunity where he just got force fed the ball like crazy. Could that happen in Atlanta? It could, but the only time we saw it was 1 year with Hooper. The rest of the time, they haven't really force-fed the ball to the tight end, and partly that's because they had Julio, Calvin Ridley, and all these things. But it's also an aging offense. How long is Matt Ryan going to be the quarterback? How much? There's enough questions there for me to say, am I willing to bank on this guy being truly a unicorn in every sense? Or would I rather take the path that I've seen 100 times and play it a little bit safer? And I think that's where kind of I'm at, is I'm playing it a little bit safer, I feel like, with Devonta Smith and Jamar Chase.
But you have to also look at the draft capital that they put in the guy. Fourth overall pick.
Tied for the highest ever.
Right. So, they are going to use this guy. There's all, the never ending rumors that they're going to try to trade Julio here. They're they're fielding offers basically. So, in my eyes, there's a path 2 years from now where he is the big play guy. Calvin Ridley, maybe takes that over for a year, but all of a sudden this Kyle Pitts, this 6'6" guy that no one can cover, is the guy that is the centerpiece and is the guy getting force fed the ball an awful lot. So that's how I get him up there in my, that's my reasoning with that.
And I think yours is probably more common than mine. I think a lot of people have him in the top 3 or 4. For me I guess it's one spot. I have him at 5. It's not like I'm super low. Yeah.
No, I get the trepidation, and I get the fact that there aren't a lot of these highly drafted tight ends that go on to have a bunch of fantasy success. But I don't let my eyes get deceived, by all the numbers, all the crap that's going on, and all the history and everything, because history can teach you stuff in certain instances, but and it's probably wise to follow that for the most part. But
there are outliers.
In this instance, I feel like Kyle Pitts is an outlier. I think he's going to do really good things at the NFL. He is a freak athlete, like you said, a wide receiver basically. Yeah, in a tight end's body, or not even. He's like a big wide receiver. He's not even. Yeah,
I'm not even sure he has a tight end's body, to be honest.
But he's at the tight end position, and that's what we care about.
We get eligibility for it.
Exactly.
All right, Travis Etienne at 6. We've touched on him real quick. We've heard some things come out of Jags camp. We've heard some things from Urban Meyer. Should fantasy managers be worried, or is this just a lot of coach speak, or is it somewhere in between? What are your feelings on it so far, Matt?
So to sum it up, right, what's been said so far from what I've heard is that there's going to be a 3-headed monster. Basically, all these guys are going to have a role. Travis, correct. Going to be like the pass catching back in this trio. And then the rookie camp or whatever, he's out there running routes as a wide receiver, right? Yep. That's where we're at. That's
the Reader's Digest version of it.
Did I miss anything there?
No, I don't think anything major. There was Urban said something else about, I'm blanking on it now, but he made some other like small comment about Travis Etienne and whatnot. But basically, the big thing is he's going to be our third down back, and they basically played him exclusively at receiver during rookie minicamp.
I think it's great that he's getting some exposure from the wide receiver position. He's not going to play a wide receiver. You know what I mean? They'll flex him out occasionally if he shows he can do it, because Urban Meyer is a creative offensive play caller, and I think he likes to use guys that can be in multiple spots. We've seen it at the college ranks with Curtis Samuel, Paris Campbell, some of these other guys that were, and going back
Percy
to
Harvin. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't think he's a Percy Harvin-esque type of player. He doesn't have those kind of movement skills, in my opinion, in the open field.
Right.
But I think they're looking for ways to get him the ball and let him go, because I think that's what he does really well. So that's encouraging from my perspective, and why I kept him in the top 6. And with that, and the fact that he is a talented player, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
He is the third running back in my opinion, and some of these other guys are just, I think, a little bit more special in my opinion. But
and I think a little more well-rounded.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it as well. But I love the fit there. I think they're going to use him, eventually as the guy. I think this is a very short window for these other two to be kind of splitting carries, and it's eventually going to be his job. You don't use a first round draft pick on a running back. Maybe Herb's new to the game, and maybe he's picturing something.
That is a little bit of my worry, Matt, that this is his first go round in the NFL. Yeah. He's used to just college, and at Florida and Ohio State, if he wants a guy, he just goes and gets him. Right. And he kind of did that same thing here where he wanted Travis Etienne and he just went and got him. But it's not that easy in the NFL. You have to use draft picks and things to build the team
and all sorts of stuff that you have to use to collaborate and get together and build a team with. Yep.
Right. So to say he fell in love with a running back, which, here was the third comment. This was the third comment. I knew there was a third one, that he said that Cadarius Tony was their guy at that pick. And then when he was gone, he took Travis Etienne. That was the third quote. Did you hear that one?
I forgot about it, but I did hear about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, coaching 101, talk about your players, not the other players. So to downgrade your guy and say he was our plan B there isn't the best. The other thing that does kind of tell me is, you mentioned Curtis Samuel, you mentioned Percy Harvin and all of these guys. Kadarius Toney would have been the type of guy that would have fit into that mold.
He would have. And I could see why Herb would want him, because he does fit in that mold really well.
So are they going to try to push a square peg into a round hole? And yes, maybe he still gets 8, 10, maybe even 12 rushes a game. But the rest of the time, they're trying to use him on this unique stuff that maybe would be better suited for Visca.
Yeah. Maybe they try to do that, but what does this say about Laviska Shenault is what I'm kind of curious, because I would think he would fit into that mold.
He would fit into that role a little bit better, I would think.
A little bit better than
Etienne.
Travis Etienne, yeah, for sure.
So that's my difficulty with all of this is, rational thought would be, you draft a running back in the first round, you're giving him 20 touches a game between the ground and the air.
Right.
That's rational thought. Mm-hmm. But we've learned over the years that coaches aren't always rational, and they don't always line up with fantasy football. They have other plans. They have other things in mind than how many touches I get this guy. They're trying to game plan and use these guys as chess pieces in order to win the game. They don't care about that.
They don't care about our starting lineups.
They don't. They couldn't care less.
Stinks, but they don't. Yeah.
So with a guy that fancies himself as a creative offensive mind, I am a little bit worried that this whole situation could be messier than I would want it to be.
I mean, I totally agree. Which is why I think he dropped behind guys like Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts in my eyes. Yeah. But if you have a need at the position, he's still the third best guy.
For sure.
Which is why if at number 3 you need a running back and these other two go, that's why I'm okay with you taking.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So it's a tricky, I guess, coach speak world that we're living in. With Travis Etienne. But the bottom line is they used a first round draft pick on him, and you would think they would have some sort of plan to get him the ball and get him involved in the offense. So,
yes.
With that said, we've got some breaking news.
Breaking news.
This is an important PSA. It's brought to you by manscaped.com. This is your pubic service announcement and the news you've all been waiting for. The Manscaped engineering team has confirmed that they have successfully created the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is now available for purchase in the United States and Canada. This new trimmer was just released only moments ago, and we are one of the first to get our hands on it and share the news. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code NERDS at manscaped.com. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0, and I'm blown away by its performance. The craftsmanship and the details on the 4.0 are next level. Their advanced ceramic blade and skin-safe technology is so good that it almost seems as if Manscaped worked with Elon Musk's engineers to ensure that your testes are as safe as possible. What makes this trimmer different from all the other trimmers? The new multi-function on-off switch, which can engage a travel lock created for travelers who don't like their bags buzzing through the TSA. The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for more precise shaves. And the new trimmer even allows you to customize your trim to different lengths with guard sizes 1 through 4. And look-wise, it's very sleek. It's got a two-toned matte and glossy finish, and it has a nice stamped black chrome Manscaped logo. Show it off to all your friends. The optimized Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer is waterproof, so you can groom in the shower so you don't have to get it all over your bathroom floor. And did I mention the wireless charging, which is a nice new feature? It has the electromagnetic induction, which can help the battery life lengthen as well. If you're still trimming your face with your ball trimmer, it's time to make some changes. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code NERDS at manscaped.com. No person wants to end up with pubes in their mouth, and your balls will thank you. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code NERDS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code NERDS. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
Pubes in your mouth.
You don't want that, man. Don't use the beard trimmer.
That is rough.
Mm-hmm.
Our second, or I guess this would be our third sponsor of the show today. Our friends, we've been talking about them for a while now. Our friends over at PredictionStrike.com. Matt, I was doing a little bit of homework, and right now, currently, our boy, the top running back in the class, in our opinion, Javonte Williams, current stock price, $4.44. You want to venture to guess what Najee Harris's is?
I bet you it's like $6 or something crazy like that.
$7.
Oh,
you could get 2 Javontes for the price of 1 Najee. 2 for the price of 1.
Oh my gosh. Go get your Javonte now.
Oh, go load up, guys. You are welcome. Andy's cheaper than Travis Etienne, only by about 50 cents.
Melvin Ingram's knee is going to go out this year.
He's gone.
Javonte Williams is going up the stock.
Woo. So if you want to invest in a guy like Javonte Williams, which I would highly recommend, you can do just that over at PredictionStrike.com. It is the only performance-based stock market where you can buy and sell shares of professional athletes just like they were stocks. Best part, they have an app. That is always my favorite part. Yeah. And you can be a part of this. You can be part of the Javonte Williams hype train and sign up with the promo code Dynasty to receive $10 free with your first deposit of $20 or more. That's promo code Dynasty to receive $10 free with your first deposit of $20 or more over at PredictionStrike.com. 2 for the price of 1, people.
Woo, go get your Javonte Williams.
All right. So let's jump back in here. At number 7 overall, we have the second wide receiver drafted, Jalen Waddle. Similar to what I talked about a little bit ago, with 3 through 6 being very close, 7 through 10 are very close for me as well. What do you have Jalen Waddle at 7 as well, or do you have somebody else there?
I actually have Trevor Lawrence there.
Ooh,
even in a one QB league, I have him up that high. I do think he's another reason he's up there is he's one of these generational guys. I know that quarterbacks are easy to come by in one QB leagues. But I think Trevor Lawrence has shown through his college ranks and his college years that he's one of these guys that is going to be a long-term option and a high-end producer for fantasy purposes as well. Not only just through the air, he has a sneaky amount of running that he does.
He does.
As well.
He's a very good athlete.
Yeah, he does not get the credit for that, obviously because he's such a good passer of the football. But I think from a fantasy perspective, he's landed in a really nice spot there in this, not to beat the dead horse and keep talking about Urban Meyer's offense, but I think they're going to use some RPO stuff and get him on the move a little bit to kind of get his feet wet, especially in the NFL. I think that's the path for these guys to learn. The NFL, it used to be a running game. You'd lean on the running game heavily in order to get the guys kind of acclimated and kind of limit their passing attempts. But in the world that we're in now, I think it's the use of the RPO stuff. Give them quick, easy stuff, or give them an option to run on any given play if needed. So that's why I have Trevor Lawrence there. But Jalen Waddle is the very next guy. So if you want to get into Waddle here a bit, he's just one spot lower for me at 8.
Well, I'm gonna stay on Trevor Lawrence for a second because I do have him lower. I have him at 11. And so he's kind of out of this tier that I would kind of mix up because there's this group of receivers that I really, really like that I have 7 through 10. I understand the safety of it. I was talking about that earlier with Pitts. That's one of the things that it just worries me a tiny bit. The safety of getting Trevor Lawrence there, you really do know what you're getting. We've seen this movie play out before with guys like Peyton Manning, with Andrew Luck. We kind of know what type of talent he is. The hard part for me is partly the position. Right. The quarterbacks just aren't nearly as valuable. And it's partly that there's a lot of other good fantasy quarterbacks. I definitely think he's clearing away the best actual quarterback. But for fantasy, I don't think the gap is quite as big. So guys like Fields, guys like Lance, some of these players, I think aren't that far away from him. I mean, I guess I have Justin Fields down at 19. So there is a 7 spot, 8 spot gap there. But I just don't, if I miss out on Lance at 7, 8, 9, I feel really comfortable coming back and getting Lance, getting Wilson, getting Fields. That doesn't really bother me too much. I don't want to miss out on this tier of wide receivers. So I do have Jalen Waddle as the next guy. I love him reuniting with Tua Tagovailoa. I really like him in this offense. I do think that he's going to probably run primarily out of the slot to begin with. Could they move him to the outside? They could, but I do think that's probably where he's going to live for the most part. Will Fuller is on a 1-year deal, so if things don't work out, he could move on, but I think he's going to operate closer to the line of scrimmage. Not that he can't be a field stretcher. Obviously, with his speed, he can, but I do think he's going to operate a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage and make plays with yards after the catch ability, which he has a lot of. We saw that dynamic open field stuff with the punt returns and all of that with Jalen Waddle. He has very good vision in the open field too. Not the most elusive player, but definitely more elusive than these other crazy speed guys that we saw like Henry Ruggs last year. Definitely has more wiggle than guys like that. So I am a fan of Jalen Waddle. I think he's going to do great in this offense. And right after him, I have Rashad Bateman, Rondale Moore, and Elijah Moore. And I'm really close to flip-flopping a lot. Actually, you know what? I've been taking Elijah over Rondale, so it really should be Elijah, then Rondale Moore. I just switched it in my rankings. I don't know why it was the other way. But Jalen Waddle, Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore for those next 4. What I'm assuming those 4 are your next 4 receivers or no?
No.
Oh, wait, there's one guy you really like. I forgot about it. All right. So and we'll talk about him because I have him still a couple spots down even after this. Who's your next group?
To get back on the Jalen Waddle stuff, I love him. Obviously his fit with Tua, but I love this pick for Tua. You know what I mean? Because I think
I love Tua this year.
I think he's going to be able to get the ball into Jalen Waddle's hands close to the line of scrimmage, like you were saying, which I think is a strength of Tua's, and get it to him quickly and make a nice accurate throw, and then let Jalen Waddle go. And I think it's going to be a nice boost for Tua's production from a fantasy perspective. So I like it both ways there for Jalen Waddle and also for Tua.
Nice. All right. So who are the guys you have after Waddle?
So my next after Waddle, I've got Elijah Moore. After Elijah Moore, I've got Terrace Marshall Jr.
I knew you were going to do it. I knew it.
And then I actually break it up a little bit here. I have Michael Carter sneaking in to the back end of the first round, and then Cadarius Tony, and then Rondale Moore and Rashad Bateman are kind of right there at the beginning of the top of the second round for me.
All right. Well, we'll see how much time we have if we can get to them. If not, we'll start off with those guys at 13 and 14 next show. But talk real quick for me about, let's see, did you have it more than Marshall, or was it Marshall then Moore?
Yeah, Elijah Moore and then Marshall. So I have those guys, back to back. But there is a gap in, Jalen Waddle and Elijah Moore are much closer.
So they're their own little tier for you, kind of?
Yeah, in my overall rank. And then there's a bit of a break, and then it's Terrace Marshall and some of these other guys. So Elijah Moore, yeah, I mean, obviously we went from, the Jets, everyone kind of avoiding them like the plague, to, they bring in a new quarterback, with what pick was it? The
second pick.
Was the second overall. I couldn't remember for the second. With the second overall pick, then they get another offensive lineman. So that's 2 years
14
that they've gotten an offensive lineman in the first round. So they're starting to really secure that kind of situation. And now, I mean, they have a lot of weapons there, but
they do.
Nobody like Elijah Moore, in my opinion. So that's where I think why he's up here where he is. Obviously they have Jamison Crowder running out of the slot right now. But Elijah Moore does everything that Jamison Crowder does, and then way more after the catch. You know what I mean? He offers so much more than a Jamison Crowder. So it's not going to be long until I think he is, in my opinion, the most talented wide receiver they have. So it's not going to take him very long to really get up there and become Zach Wilson's number one option.
I totally hear you. I do still like Denzel Mims a lot. Obviously, Corey Davis became part of the mix this past year. The interesting thing, though, there is an out in Jamison Crowder's contract this year. Would only be a $1 million dead cap hit. Now, I don't know what their overall cap situation's like. I don't know. Maybe I'll look that up in just a second. But
I'll take a look while you're talking. Go ahead.
Okay, but it wouldn't be inconceivable for the Jets to just outright cut Jamison Crowder if they're wanting to make sure that they get Elijah Moore on the field sooner. So that wouldn't be the most. It is a new team, not the team or a new regime, I should say, not the coaching staff that brought him in before. We do still have the same general manager, but not the same coaching staff that had him before. So there's definitely a chance that he could be gone with only a $1 million cap hit.
So yeah, right now they're good to go. They have the most cap space at 27 million. So I mean, but there were rumors swirling that they were trying to get either trade him or cut him earlier in the offseason. So it wouldn't be like a big shock. I think
it's definitely a possibility
on this team, even come summertime. So who knows? Maybe they find a trade partner, or maybe they just cut him loose. Even though they've got money, maybe they cut him loose regardless, because maybe he sees a situation where he's not going to be getting the ball as much. And you don't want a guy like Jamison Crowder, who's used to getting 180 million, 190 targets a year.
Feels that way.
Only getting 80, because then he's only going to get 400 yards. So
right. Yeah. Yeah. He's not going to get too far. All right. So let's address the elephant in the room now. You have Terrace Marshall all the way up here at 9. I don't have him in my first round. Why? Tell me why you love him. Tell me why you love Terrace Marshall.
I mean, obviously, Rich and I think we're both kind of on the Terrace Marshall stuff. You really weren't.
Right.
But there's very few guys in this draft class that are like the size speed freaks that this guy is. And 6'3", 205. He's got very prototypical, X wide receiver type of size. And to run a 4.4, he's got 39-inch vertical. He is a freak type of guy. And, for the Panthers to get him this late in the second round, I think it speaks to the fact that there was that little bit of a foot issue that popped up with the medical recheck. Otherwise, I think he may have gone a little bit earlier. Obviously, this past season, you can almost throw it out. just because of the COVID and the fact that the quarterback situation took such a downturn when Joe Burrow left. And if you go back to 2019, he's not as good as Jefferson and as Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase.
It doesn't mean he's not good. And I liked a lot of the things that he did on tape. I did have him in the first round to begin with, and going to the Panthers isn't going to, in my eyes, knock him down below some of these guys where, obviously Bateman, I didn't love that landing spot. I didn't love him to begin with, and kind of I moved him up, based off of some stuff that you guys had found out about him getting COVID and all that before the season. But then when he went back to the Ravens, he bumped back down the list for me just a couple spots. He wasn't back to where he was prior to that, because I still do like the 2019 tape, but I just don't love the situation there. And I know situations can change. And I talked about that, with Devonta Smith. But I think the situation there with Jalen Hurts is he hasn't established himself. So he could be replaced much easier than
Lamar
there in Baltimore. So,
all right. So I understand why people are drawn to Marshall. I get the allure. You mentioned the size and the speed. That's always an attractive thing. Those are things that you just can't teach. You can't teach them to be 6'3". And I do like that he reunited with Joe Brady. The fact that his former offensive coordinator got him is definitely something that would speak to, that he must have had some influence on that pick, I would assume.
Well, I mean, at the very least, they were like, "Hey, Joe, tell me what this guy does. Good. Is this guy worth taking?" Yeah,
he's not. If he would have
off our board, what I mean?
Right? Like, yeah, exactly. If he would have said
a likely conversation that's happened between Joe Brady and the personnel people.
For sure, he could have been like, "No, screw that guy. He sucks. Don't draft him." So he has to like him at least a little bit in order for that pick to happen. So all of those things I do think make sense. I haven't heard officially if it was the injury stuff or if that was just where Marshall ended up being taken. So the slide is definitely interesting and something to monitor. Either way, it is a little bit concerning. Either, the evaluations were a little lower than we assumed, or there is some lingering, injury stuff that we're going to have to keep an eye out over the course of his career. I just wasn't as blown away on tape. And that's really what it comes down to for me more than anything else. I thought he was a good player with good speed that could get vertical. Okay at contested catch situations, but just a guy that was really pretty stiff. There's not a ton after the catch with him. I thought he was a good player. And if I got him in the early second to mid second in a 1 QB league, I'm happy. He's always going to go before that, though. So I probably won't have him anywhere. I don't think he's a bad player, but there's just other players that I think I like a lot more, like, both the Moores, Rashad Bateman, even Cadarius Tony, like that range of players. I just like a little bit more than I like him. So,
and I get it. And I feel very similar. Like you could change the name and put Rashad Bateman in the head.
And that's kind of how you feel about him.
That's how I feel about him. So these are the conversations and these are the things that make, the dynasty world go around. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Trades happen. This is all, it's just a difference of opinion. You see one thing, I see another. It's subjective. So, it's great to debate it and talk about it. And sometimes, I can say something and maybe it'll change your mind. Sometimes you could say something, maybe it'll change my mind. But for the most part, I know how I evaluate, and I'm pretty sure you evaluate the same way. You use your eyes. I try to knock out the noise as much as possible and just stick with that. So it's great. These are the things that I like. These kind of little differences. Well, the only time will tell. We can argue this till we're both blue in the face. But 2 or 3 years down the line, we'll see which one of these guys actually pans out and which one, or maybe they both do. Maybe I'm wrong on Bateman, you're wrong on Marshall, and
they both suck.
or right.
or they're both great. Who knows?
Exactly. Or they're both great. So who knows? These NFL evaluators get paid millions of dollars and they can't get it right all the time. So
it's true. So overall, I mentioned it earlier. I'm going to recap real quick. Rashad Bateman at 8, Elijah Moore at 9, Rondale Moore at 10, Trevor Lawrence at 11, and then Cadarius Tony at 12. So really the only two guys that are in my top 12 that we have not discussed at all yet are Rondale Moore and Cadarius Tony. Let's start with Rondale Moore. I have him at 10. I know that you and Rich, you guys were both a little bit lower on him than I was. Part of that was the size. We just had never seen anybody at that height before really be successful. Sure. And there were a couple things on tape that you guys didn't overly love. How do you feel about him now on the Cardinals? Interested, not interested? How close is he to your top 12?
So he's just one spot out of my top 12. He's at 13 for me. So it's not like I'm disinterested in Rondale Moore. I'm just
hair lower,
a hair lower. You know what I mean? And it's the 5'7". It's 180 pounds. I know he plays bigger than that, right? It's the injuries on top of that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was 4 games the past 2 seasons, and it was his freshman year where he played like a full season.
Yep. It was. His freshman year was the year.
Right. And from what I saw on tape, I saw a guy that, he has got a lot of nice workout videos. But I didn't see a guy that played as strong as he is in his videos or his bench or his squat would indicate. I saw a guy that was trying to win with speed, trying to get to the outside. That was kind of his one avenue. And he's fast, 4.29 in the 40. He's fast in a straight line. I don't know. I don't love the guy. I know I'm sounding like really negative now. I don't hate him either. There's a spot, obviously, no one there is established beyond DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
It's Kirk.
Christian Kirk. Larry Fitzgerald, we believe, is retiring, but
he's retired. But Christian Kirk is in his last year. Andy Isabella hasn't done anything.
And then AJ Green's there. Just got signed in the offseason.
But AJ Green's going to be there for 1 year.
Exactly. And they play very different games.
They do. So I think this is like the year where they try to figure out how to use Rondale Moore kind of as this satellite player, as this kind of gadgety type of really fast guy out of the slot.
Why didn't the Jaguars take him?
Well, because I
good point. If they want Curtis Samuel and they want Percy Harvin back, take Rondale Moore.
But maybe they saw the same thing I saw, and they were like, man, this guy just tries to win with speed. He's not all that great. Like, people miss anything like that. So maybe they didn't really see that in his future.
So for me, I did really like Rondale Moore. It was funny because for as much as you guys hated him and as much as I really liked him, there wasn't a huge difference, even pre-draft in the rankings, just because of kind of how the tiers worked out. So there ended up not being much of a difference in the overall rankings.
I think it says a lot about the rest of the draft, to be honest. That it's
there's a big tier break.
I got him at 13. There.
Yeah. I have him at 10 overall. So there's not a huge difference overall, but I do really like Rondale Moore. Anytime you can dominate as a true freshman, I mean, you are an 18-year-old kid. I was a little bit older for my class in high school. I played high school football. I was 18 when I played because I had the awkward summer birthday. So you're either like the oldest or the youngest in your class.
I'm the youngest. I'm the opposite.
Okay. See, I was the oldest in my class. So I was still playing high school football at age 18.
I almost went to college at 17.
You were like Rondale Moore.
Yeah.
He was dominating Ohio State at age 18. I couldn't even dominate Smithville. It's wild to be able to do what he was able to do at such a young age. Obviously we've seen all of the physical attributes, the vertical, the speed, the strength for his size. I mean, there's a lot going on there. And I think when you pair that up with what is going on in Arizona, all of the passing they have going on, I love that they decided to take like the 2 smallest guys at like each position with Kyler Murray. They're just going to have the shortest team possible.
Everyone's going to think it's the punt, pass, and kick competition coming out for halftime when those guys show up.
I thought for sure they were going to draft Jarrett Patterson just to kind of round out the group. But apparently they decided to let Washington nab him instead. But I really do like Rondale Moore. Really the biggest thing comes down to me is if you can dominate, if I love your tape as a true freshman, it's going to be hard for me to come off of that. And I think that's really why he has stuck so hard for me. Last but not least, rounding out the group, I had Trevor Lawrence at 11. You mentioned you had him higher at, I believe, 7, you said. Kadarius Tony's the last one in this group then for me. Oh, go ahead.
Before we move on real quick from Rondale Moore, do you have any worries about the past history of them drafting wide receivers and it just not really working out? I mean, it was the first year Cliff Kingsbury was there is when they drafted 3 wide receivers, Isabella, Hakeem Butler, and Keyshawn Vaughn. And now it's Rondale Moore.
Keyshawn Vaughn.
Keyshawn Johnson. Sorry.
Keyshawn Johnson. Yeah. None of those guys worked out.
None of those guys worked out. I mean, I know that's 1 year and they took 3 shots at it and it didn't work. And maybe this is the one that does work, but is there any of that in the back of your mind? Because it did pop up in the back of my mind. I'm like, these guys just one of these, another team a la a Baltimore, a la a New England, who just have a hard time drafting that position.
I think it's a little bit different with Baltimore and New England because those are staffs and front offices that are established, that have been there for years doing this. This is a really new franchise overall as far as who all's in place making the decisions. So that doesn't worry me too much. And I really try hard, even though it is part of the equation, I really try hard to take each player on a case-by-case basis because we see outliers on all of this all the time. I mean, a great example, the narrative for a while was that the Big 12 couldn't produce a quarterback. Literally, the Big 12 had never had a quarterback win a playoff game until 2019. That was the first time a Big 12 quarterback had ever won a playoff game in the NFL, ever.
Wow.
Which is wild.
That is.
And now Kyler Murray's from there. Patrick Mahomes is from there. Baker Mayfield's from there. Sorry. If it was Rich, I would have said, Baker first. But
how dare you?
Yeah. He's going to come on this show and be so mad. Baker Mayfield's from the Big 12. Jalen Hurts. Like, we have a lot of really good quarterbacks that have now come from the Big 12 and had success in the NFL. So, there are all of these narratives. The same thing with Ohio State. Ohio State can't produce a quarterback. Does that mean Justin Fields is going to be bad? There's a lot of those types of narratives. I try really hard to make it a case-by-case basis. So does it sneak in the back of your mind at times? Sure. But overall, no, I'm really not concerned.
I'm not gonna let it bother me this time. But if Rondale Moore stinks, I'm never drafting one of the wide receivers again.
You're dead to me. You're dead to me, Kingsbury. All right. Last but not least, Kadarius Tony, first round pick, 20th overall by the New York Football Giants. How are you feeling about Kadarius Tony?
I was actually, I think the highest out of the 3 of us pre-draft. So I expected him to go in the first round. I think there was a lot of chatter about him going in the first round. He's going to a team that does not have a player like him, which I think is good. But he's got some learning to do, and I saw that, in the tape evaluation, he can separate. He's not a great route runner, but he can still separate because he's that explosive athletically. What he needs to do now is learn how to run a route. So we'll see if he actually does or not. I think
that the tools are there for him to be a good route runner. The problem was he was just often doing too much with it. Like he all the stop and go and you only need one move to break a guy off. You don't need to be doing 100 different things.
But he does have nice open field moves. He's got the ability to break big plays off of just kind of dump offs, which I think is going to be nice. Obviously for Daniel Jones, who's I think struggled a little bit downfield, to get a weapon that's going to be operating a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, I think is going to be nice for his value. Maybe get up the completion percentage a bit. And Kadarius Tony, obviously he had the well-documented drops at the Senior Bowl, but it wasn't really an issue in any games that I watched him. So
I saw there wasn't as many drops. You're right, but I did see some double catching that I didn't like seeing.
Yeah. And letting some stuff into his body, but as long as it's a catch, it's a catch. You know what I mean? Like
for sure. If it works that way in the NFL,
you don't have to be making an Odell one-handed catch behind your back in order to get 1 point for me in my PPR league. So as long as he's doing that and getting some nice run after the catch stuff, which I obviously that's how they see him. Cause that's who he is. You know what I mean? If they try to use him as a downfield guy, they're just misusing him. So Cadarius Tony, I like him. Obviously I believe they traded up, right? They traded down. Back.
No, they traded down to 20.
They traded down to nice or something like that. Whatever. A lot of trades. This is, I feel like we're a little bit too far removed.
It was about 3 weeks ago now
for me to remember all the moves and all that kind of stuff. But they really liked him. So they snagged him there in the first round. And Dave Gettleman was talking up with his thick accent about how much he liked him. So I'll never try an accent again.
That wasn't actually too bad. That wasn't terrible.
but I like the fit there in New York.
Kadarius Tony was a player that when I put on the tape, I was pleasantly surprised with what I saw. I do think he's a very good athlete. He was able to do some things in the open field that I don't think your average slot receiver is able to do. But I do always worry about gadget type players. That does always concern me a little bit. They're not my favorite overall.
Right. Does he fall into a Tavon Austin role somewhere down the line? Or does he actually establish himself, become a good route runner and live up to the hype? And all of a sudden, this is the guy that everyone's fading a little bit in the first round, and he produces like a Brandon Ayuk.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this back end of the first round type of a wide receiver who slid into the second round in a lot of fantasy drafts, but actually ended up producing pretty well.
Yeah, and quietly, the Giants have actually built themselves a nice little offense. Saquon Barkley will be back in the backfield. They have Kenny Golladay now to play the X. Darius Slayton will likely play the Z. And then we have Kadarius Tony running out of the slot. And then Sterling Shepard, I don't know. Like, honestly, I'm not sure where he fits. Maybe he doesn't play the slot anymore and he plays the Z. Or, I don't know how this is all going to work out, but there's a lot of good pass catchers on this team now.
Don't forget Evan Ingram as well. You didn't even.
Yeah, at tight end. Well, I was going to think about him, and then he dropped it, and yeah,
he's talking about some hand issues. Yeah,
he drops a lot. He drops a lot of passes. So I do like him. I do worry about. Can he be, we're looking at Elijah Moore. We're looking at Rondale Moore. We're looking at, there's a clear path for some of these guys to be the clear one at some point, or at least a very strong two in a high passing offense. I don't know that this is going to be a super high passing offense. And Kenny Galladay's clearly got the one shored up. So best case scenario, we're looking at a 2, and it's in an offense that's still going to throw to the running back a lot in Saquon Barkley. So just will there be enough touches? I think best case scenario, you're looking at him being like the third option on this offense, and that's best case scenario. So we're going to have to see how all of that plays out.
Yeah, no doubt. There is a lot to come there, but
high risk, high reward.
Ton of upside. I think if he does learn to run a route, and he, obviously has the explosiveness to separate, I think he could be a very dangerous weapon for them. So that's why, I had Kadarius Tony right above Rondale Moore. So, I mean, this is, you had him flip-flopped in your order. I had Kadarius just a little bit above. So,
cool. All right. Well, that wraps up the show for today. We appreciate you guys listening. Come back to our next episode where Matt and I will break down the next 12 guys, Matt.
Absolutely. On the Nerd Herd Show. Definitely.
Let's do it. All right. We'll see you guys later.
Adios.